roundtable today and taking the time out of your busy, busy days to come here, but we felt it was extremely important that we all kind of try to get on the same page. And there's Mr. Patel there, who, that's quite all right.
Sushil, could you sign in and get a packet?
The reason that we wanted everybody here, and IT people too, is because with the new laws that are coming into effect or may already be in effect about credit cards, that no number will be visible to anyone. No one can make a copy of a credit card anymore. You can't be able to pull it up on a screen and see a guest credit card. It'll all be X'd out, or I think they call it tokenization, which is like just some little weird symbol, number, random thing that will have no meaning of any kind of credit card number for the guest. So with that, yes. Oh. I just lost my train of thought now. Oh, when we come in and do our audits, of course, with the government exempt, our regulations and that have been in effect forever, we take the first 6 digits of the card number, and that's how we determine if it is centrally billed or individually billed. And those come from the GSA Smart Pay website, which explains about the credit cards. So with not being able to see any part of the number, even if they X out the first section and leave the last 4 digits, that will not have any use to us. So we need to try to come up with something, a report from LMS or Opera or whatever system that you have at your property, to try to see if there is such a report that can be created that can pull the first 6 digits or the first 4 digits and the 6th digit, something like that, that we can see when we come in and audit. Because, you know, right now we're just like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? So that's why we're here. We hope, you know, that you guys have some good ideas and thoughts that kind of we can work together on this, because it's going to be happening like really quick. So this is Brian Rivers. He is our Director of Finance. This is Ben Kennedy, our Legal Counsel. Robert Douglas, Senior Tax Auditor, and I'm Karen Barnes, the Tax Audit Manager. So with that, I will turn it over to Robert to start his little explaining. Thanks.
Okay, hi everyone, and thanks for coming. I'm the one that sent the email out to everyone. Stephen, there's a seat right here if you want to sit up here. And there's a seat there. There's a seat there. We pull up there. You can get another seat up here. I just want you, the way I have a little presentation to make. I'm talking too loud? Okay, I'm talking too loud. I just have a little presentation to make so that everyone understands how the government exempt works. And if you want to say anything, because this is being recorded, it's being live streamed as well. So if you want to say anything, just pick the closest mic and then hit the talk button. The red light will come on. So everyone's conversation will be, and you can put your mic up if you want to speak. Anyway, so because this is totally interactive between everyone here and everyone that's live streaming it or listening to it on the phone. So one of the things that Karen and I get a lot from hotels and from salespeople, which is why we invited salespeople here, is they think that we set the rules as far as what credit cards are used, what credit cards aren't accepted, and so the little packet that I gave you, if you go to the second page, all of this comes from the GSA.gov website, and I'll just read quickly what is highlighted here. It's federal employees who are traveling on business or who are making work-related purchases may or may not be subject to state taxes. The state determines whether or not to apply certain taxes to the federal employee transactions. In most cases, there's two types of credit cards. The centrally billed, which is what we allow as exempt from tax, and then this individually billed. So the centrally billed are issued at the agency, bureau, division, or fleet rather than to individuals. And the individually billed accounts include travel expenses paid by the employee who later seeks reimbursement from the government and allow for taxes to be charged. The cardholder and not the government is billed for the purchase of goods and services. So that's the distinction between the two different types of credit cards. And most states require hotels and restaurants collect taxes from employees who use IBA, or the individually billed charge card, for payment. The legal reasoning is that it is the employee, not the federal government, who is reliable for the card and charges made on it. The legal incidence of the tax falls on the employee. Indeed, the entire bill is a personal responsibility of the employee, and the transactions are taxable. So that's coming directly from the GSA. We didn't make it up, and Karen and I have had calls from people from hotels and from government employees who use from employees who have used individually billed credit cards, and they're kind of mad at us for not accepting the individually billed credit cards, and this is where it's coming from. We're not making it up. And I did have a hotel call me. The manager called me with a government employee who was using an individually billed card, and he could not understand why we were not accepting it, and I explained it to him. Then the guest checked out and went to another hotel, and they accepted his card as exempt. And when, like Karen was saying, when we go in and audit, if it's an individually billed credit card, then it's disallowed. And unfortunately, that hotel is not represented here today. So, I mean, we don't make the rules. We're just following what the GSA says. So on the second page is the list of the credit cards that are acceptable. And again, this comes from the GSA. We've got the centrally billed and individually billed credit cards. So it's the first four, and then, like Karen said, the sixth digit. And if it doesn't fall within this, then for the centrally billed, then they're not subject to exemption from transient lodging tax. There's also the state of Nevada also uses purchasing cards, which is not on this, because this is just the federal government. So that's another thing where that credit card is so important that that we know what the first four. I think the purchasing cards are just the four, right?
Yes.
It's just the first four, 5405, something like that. Oh, did I hear someone? So let's see. So on page 34 of 37, common questions. Several states exempt federal government employees from taxes with the individually billed travel card. Please select your state on the U.S. state tax map, which I did. If you look at the last page, this is the state of Nevada. And it says, am I exempt from state taxes? IBA travel card, which is individually billed? No. CBA, which is the centrally billed? Yes. So this is coming from the state, and it's the transient lodging tax, or it's the Nevada Department of Revenue. So we're just following what is outlined in front of us. And do you have anything to add to that? Am I saying it right, Ben? Okay. So, I mean, that's that. The next little section of the handout is from our regulations and on government exemptions. So you can see the state of Nevada, and we're going to have a question and answer. You can jump in anytime, but there will be questions and answers if you have questions about any of the regulations or any of the other exemptions. But 6.4.3 is the government credit cards. The numbers here match what's on the GSA. So, oh, we do. Oh, we have one extra one. Where'd it come from? 5564. They changed. But anyway, this is what is, I mean, we're just following what the GSA puts out. So, like Karen was talking about, and we've seen it in some audits, is the tokenization and where the credit cards are going to be encrypted or whatever. You guys know better than we do about what your banks are doing or what you can see. It used to be where, like, Stephen from the Courtyard, oh, Homewood now, yeah, well, you used to be Courtyard. But Stephen would, as a manager, would be able to go into with a special code and open up the entire credit card number and see it. But that, from what we hear anyway, is going away. So have any of you noticed that? Do you know it's coming? So are you able to look at credit cards at all? Which system are you on? Oh, okay. Very good.
So you will be a good example when we come and audit Fairfield. Yeah, so that's why I hope we can come up with something before we do anybody's audit, so.
I can tell you that from an LMS standpoint, when you see the last 4 digits, there's some encrypted or special characters in the middle, and certain part of the first digit, but I have to verify how many.
Are you in the LMS?
Yes.
So if you can check that and you or Sally let us know, because that would be like the most wonderful news if if you can see the 6 or either the first 4 and the 6th would be awesome. Thank you.
Just as a verification, I actually ran a card yesterday on my own. I can see on LMS, encrypted, EMB, tokenized. I can see the first 6 and the last 4 of my own credit card.
Can you hit the mic, Rick?
Our discussion with our PCI auditor, first 6 and last 4 is compliant with PCI.
Yeah, so in the back of the room is Sushil Patel, who owns the 2 Hampton Inns and the Staybridge Suite, and he has been contacting us for months on coming up with a solution for this credit card issue, because if we can't verify the credit card number, then we can't accept the exemption. And the last page of the handout that I gave you is a report that Sushil had, and Sushil, I don't know what system do you use?
We use Opera, but this is generated
Through IHG? Okay. So the way that Sushil had, and you actually asked them to do this?
Yes.
Okay, which is why we wanted IT people here, is this report was created so that it can separate out the individually billed credit cards and the centrally billed. So, and all it gives is, it gives the outlet and res number, transaction, arrival, departure, but the card number, the token ID, it's on here is the last 4 digits, but we asked Sushil if it could be done so it's the first 6, and they said that yes, they could do that. So from an IT or, you know, programming standpoint, if, and, you know, this goes back to my days at the El Dorado 100 years ago, when we first got LMS, and it was Hargas at that time in 1989, and or 88, and we had there was a guy who worked for Hargas LMS who went out on his own and did his own programming for LMS, Dave Zinn, and a lot of the reports that some of you have that use LMS, he designed, and you know the hotels bought them from him. But if I don't know, I mean, I asked Peter from the El Dorado, Peter Broughton, if Dave was still around, but he didn't know. But anyway, maybe this is something that the hotels that use LMS and maybe the hotels that use Opera could go to Opera or could go to LMS and see if they could develop a report that they could use across the country, because all the hotels are going to have some kind of issue with credit cards in the future.
Brad, is there anybody that you can possibly contact since you're on FOSSE?
Yeah, I'm sure there's, we have a tech support team. I just haven't gone very far with them. If I elevate it to our budget company,
Okay. That'd be great. Okay, thanks.
Sushil, do you know how hard it was for them to do this?
It wasn't very difficult, but it took probably 5 months to get to that point. We still don't have an ETA on the report. We thought that we're still working on it.
Yeah, because I mean, when I talked to Peter and I was trying to bribe him with a cocktail, but it didn't work. He told me that he knew how to do something like this. Have you talked to him, Ken? No, you're not going to commit.
I got that yesterday up here.
He put it on his calendar the last time I saw him, and yeah. I mean, again, that's why, you know, if the hotels could reach out to LMS to do just one blast program, or you know, create a report, that would be the ideal situation for LMS. Is that good or bad?
But one of the issues that, you know, I know that we've run into, so we have LMS, and we earlier this year went to RSCVA, which is the tokenization platform. The token that gets sent to LMS, the numbers in it have no relation to the original number. And so it's really more at the payment gateway level that we'd probably have to start looking, which is really at Freedom Pay for us, because that's what, you know, the Agilysys' RSCVA uses Freedom Pay for their platform. And because the number never hits LMS. It gets encrypted before it reaches LMS, and then kind of bypasses LMS completely. And so, and I think that's going to become more and more true for everything moving forward, as there gets to be more of the encryption, more of the tokenization.
As are we. Yeah, so on the front page of the res, I get the first 6, last 4, and the center, however many are tokenized.
But are those actually accurate? Because we
It was
looked at that
It was
once.
my credit card.
Okay,
Yeah.
because we looked at that at one point, and at least what we're getting is that those first 6 aren't the first 6 of the number. They're the first 6 of the token.
Wonder if there's a switch setting or something.
And that's what that machine shows it as well. When you go to FF telecom, and you have to enter the credit card details, it shows there as well.
Yeah.
What version of elementary plan?
Lehua, can you come up and talk into the mic? Because this is being live streamed and recorded as well, so the people that are listening in the outside world can hear you as well.
Do you guys use the same payment provider?
Yes.
Okay.
What version of LMS are you on? Do you know?
I think
That's
it's
always the
734
challenge.
at the moment.
You're 734 at the moment?
733.
733?
Okay.
Okay, so we're on 735.
Yeah, the Eldorado's on 734, but
Sorry, so my hotel team just said that they do actually get the first 6. So
Okay. So we are
I
still
thought
the
when we first converted that I was told that that wasn't the case because they were looking for it. But yeah, and our accounting team thought the same thing. So I wasn't alone in that. But apparently the hotel team says they can see that. So it's there.
So just to be clear then, it's doing the tokenization, but you're still able to report off of it the first 6 at this point. Through
It's there.
LMS at least.
It's there and visible. So if it's there and visible in the system, we should be able to pull it somewhere.
correct.
Now, what we have heard, and Lois from the Atlantis had told us this when we were there a couple months ago, that in 6 months that will be completely gone, where she won't even be able to see any of the credit card number.
That's the EMV side. That could be the EMV side, and I know we're not EMV yet. Because you have to.
That's all above my head.
Huh?
That's all above my head.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we go EMV next week, Monday night to Tuesday morning, so I'll know more at that point,
Right.
because that's when we're going EMV.
So we converted EMV last week, however, I hadn't validated the credit card number. We are in
What about from some of the non-gaming hotels that don't use LMS or Opera? You might. So, I mean, what system do you guys use?
Could you hit your mics so that it's recorded?
The Baymont and the Wyndham has a Synexis, is what it's called. So
And do you know?
we can see all the credit cards. I mean,
Do you know if that's going away though?
We've
Because
not
isn't this whole tokenization, at least what Karen and I have been hearing, it's going away forever, that no one will ever be able to see the numbers. And that's why we're concerned, because when we come in and, because we have to, audit somehow, and we can't just open it up to, the honor system for government exemptions.
we've had no indication from either one of those companies that that's happening.
By Synexis, do you mean Sabre? You said it's through Synexis, is that Sabre?
Synexis is the name of the property management system through Wyndham.
Okay.
But I think we're sort of moving towards Sabre, but it hasn't happened yet. And we've had no indication. I mean, there have been no 100 emails saying that this is going to happen. So we're not presuming, because they're probably 3 years behind everything.
Robert Blunt. What we have heard, that there's a lot of scare out there for PCI. But according to PCI, their take on security with first 6 and last 4 unencrypted and middle 6 encrypted, with the algorithms that are built into the 16 or 15-digit credit card number, they are perfectly secure with tokenized middle six. So the idea that the card number is going to completely vanish from all systems, no, that's not what's going to happen.
Vendor chooses that. Unless the vendor chooses it. I mean, it could be a vendor choice at that point. They could just say, no, we're not gonna store any part of the credit card number in the database. That's their physical choice as a vendor.
Is that what the Atlantis is doing? Because that's what Lois told us, is that like within 6 months, you guys won't be able to see any part of the credit card number.
That is definitely not our choice, and we would, I mean, we're using LMS, so I don't see that changing, because Agilicis has to address these kind of issues. I mean, this isn't a, you know, something that is a real thing, that Agilicis is not just going to drop that and throw everything away, you know, of that, because they know that people have need of that information. And like you said, yeah, as long as those middle six or five are safe, it's not enough. It's enough to keep it safe. But the goal is that the full credit card number becomes unavailable after, you know, at the moment of card entry. That at no point does anybody have access to that full credit card number. But that doesn't mean that they never have access to any part of the credit card number, because they're still sending the information that they can safely to LMS. It's just they're not, you know, it's a matter of, yeah, LMS choosing to do it. And I don't see them moving away from that, at least not in the LMS platform.
Hilton system right now provides reporting that shows the first six. So, but we have not gone chip and pin, EMV tokenized, things like that. So I don't know what it's going to look like when that happens.
So is the consensus, or what I'm hearing, is that this isn't going to be an issue? Or is it?
Thoughts, anybody? Shall we take a vote?
Sushil, you initially raised this concern. Were you not able to see anything before that report? Nothing at all? Not just the raw token at that point? And that was through chip, through EMV at that point? But could you if it was swiped?
No.
So it didn't matter how it was transacted? Okay.
And then we raised the flag and raised the concern, went to our merchant's office first, they didn't figure it out. So then we Opera and IC called in.
Okay.
Come up with a report. But they're still, they come up with the idea of a report, but it's still not happening.
Is anybody else on Opera? And are you guys having any issues at this point that you're aware of, at least?
Not yet, but it sounds like we're going to.
I mean, there's some of the properties do a lot of government exempt, and that was another concern of ours, is to try to come up with a solution now instead of 3 years from now when we knock on your door and you can't get credit card numbers, especially the older ones, because you know when we do an audit, one of, you know, if there's something that sticks out, and we tell this to properties all the time, you know, if you have huge government exempt or huge 28-day exempt or huge line 2 adjustment that's an anomaly on any particular month, we'll look at either that entire month or we'll look at that. So if you have a large, and you know, we see it during presidential elections, especially when the Secret Service are traveling everywhere, that, you know, there's a lot of government exempt in October and November, and so we will look at that, and we don't want to see you in a few years and ask you to provide the backup and then not be able to get it somehow.
So if I can take a stab at this, to Robert's earlier question, at this point, other than Sushal, we're not aware of anybody having issues getting at least the first 6. But we're also not all EMV, and we're not all on the same platform, and things are obviously always changing, so it could break tomorrow depending on the system or the card processor. Is that?
Brad will check with
We currently
Fossey.
don't get the first 6. There is a report that shows that. However, it's hit or miss which cards it selects. Like 2 out of 10, it'll show the first 6. So those other ones we don't. So for the past 2.5 years, we've been just having to call and document it written. And again, that would be kind of like an honor system thing. So we can work on it, but I mean, at this point, we haven't been doing it that way. And when I pull up my token, it's just 6 random numbers.
One of the misconceptions that we see when we go out to the properties is some properties think they can accept, you know, sales and use exemption, which does not apply to room tax. Sales and use is just exemption from purchase of tangible goods. So, and some properties will accept a form on letterhead. We don't accept that. We just go strictly by the credit card number of the payment. So, and part of the rationale behind that is anyone can make up letterhead these days. All I have to do is get the logo and make it look official. And why someone would want to do that just to be exempt from tax, I don't know. But it could happen, and so that's why we don't accept any of those forms. It's strictly by the method of payment.
And I think part of the problem too is that it could be a lack of communication between management and the front desk people, because they're the first ones that the guest will see. And if they don't know not that they can't accept a piece of paper from a government exempt guest, they're gonna accept it. So there needs to be a really good communication with the front desk people who check the guest in if there's any questions on government exemptions.
Yeah, some hotels have the copy of our regs with the list of credit cards at the desk, so that there isn't an issue. But I mean, I worked at the front desk for many, many years, and I know, it's easier to give in and not fight the guest than to, try to comply with the rules or whatever, but then that could come back to bite you. And also, since everyone is here, and what we tell everyone when we go out to the properties, anyone that has a question, call us. I mean, both of our cards are out there at the table. Call us, because we will answer any of your questions. You can send us emails. I mean, Karen and I both get our emails on our phone, so if it's on the weekend, if I get an email, if I can answer it at the time, I answer it. Otherwise, I'll say I'll get back to you on Monday. But, I don't want to put your front desk people in a bad spot. And like I said in the very beginning, we've had government employees call us and complain, and like the person that went to another hotel and they accepted the individually billed credit card. But I mean, he was quite upset with me that we were not following federal law, and I told him we were, based on the GSA and based on this packet that I handed out there, or that we handed out to everyone. So.
We just validated that you run EMV on LMS, you see the first 6.
Front page is red.
Sorry?
Not the front page is red.
So does that, and it's been 15 years since I've worked on LMS, but is that something, like, is that something that stays there indefinitely? Or is that something that will go?
It depends on your purge cycle, Robert. If you're only keeping 13 months of data, it's going to be gone.
Which gets back to the other issue of when we see you in 3 years and you have large government exempt today or this month and it's gone. So that's why we're trying to get everyone to brainstorm on how to fix this problem. Or
So are you saying this type of a report would suffice?
That would be perfect.
Okay.
And, well, I know, Sushil, do you run this every month, or how do you do this? Uh-huh. Oh, you don't have it yet? Yeah. Yeah, but could, and I'm just throwing this out, is for, whoever prepares a tax return in accounting and finance, wherever, is if there was a report like this, to run it every month and then just leave it with the backup to your tax return, because then it is there indefinitely. If there's a report like this.
Robert, can you hear me?
Yeah. Who's this?
Okay. This is Michelle. I'm calling,
Michelle Sartini.
yes, I talk to you all the time.
Yeah.
So, just, I don't know, I deal with 30 states in different, across the country with tax exemptions. So, for now, our hotel is a Marriott, and we do run a report from FOSSI, and we are able to get the first the first 6 digits and the last 4. The report that I'm looking at right now is for the month of May, and some of them do have the 6th digit being a 2, which obviously I do not accept when I do my tax return. I tell the hotel that they have to eat it or go back and collect the tax. Just curious, if this does go away and the hotel can't do it, some states, like Rhode Island and Florida, for example, have a specific form that they've developed just for government guests, and they have to fill it out completely. They have to also fill in, the first 6 digits of the credit card, the last 4 digits of the credit card, sign it, date it, have their phone number and contact information. And that's what they accept when they come in and do audits. So I don't know if that's something that you would be willing to do if for some reason these reports do go away and we aren't able to get all of the credit card information for you.
Well, my first question, I'll let Brian answer that. But my question to you is, when you run this report, do you save it with backup to your tax return?
I save this report every month, yes.
Very good.
But I'm going forward, if this report isn't available for some reason.
We would have to amend our tax regulations at this point to provide for that, because it's specific to documenting basically these credit card numbers. So we'd have to come up with some kind of a form to allow for that documentation to be sufficient.
Okay.
So I think, without putting words in Brian's mouth, is right now it seems to be working for most properties to get the first 6. And for us to change our regs, it's a process to do that. Right?
Yeah, and I guess fundamentally the transaction is still gonna run. So then you're asking each guest to fill out this affidavit or form or whatever documentation is required by those states. Whereas if the report's there, if you could just run it once a month, it would grab it for everybody versus having to have 100 different certifications or whatever that number looks like. So I think our preference would be if there's a way to maintain what we're doing today and get either a report or some kind of information out of the property management system, that would be ideal, which sounds like at least for most folks that's sufficient and available as of today, with a few exclusions or problems. So I mean, if it does all of a sudden go away and all you get is a tokenization and it's some random 1, 2, 3, 4 number that means nothing to anybody, then I think absolutely we've got to revisit how we address it long term. But if that's not the case and we're still able to get the first 6 and last 4, which it sounds like for PCI is the case currently, that what we've got in place should be sufficient. We just need to work through the few hurdles and the few one-offs of why reports and systems aren't able to provide that today, and make sure you don't walk into an audit issue, to Robert's point, in 2 or 3 years down the road, because we don't like that either.
But I mean, if LMS or your IT departments could do something like this, it would solve all the problems in the world. That's just my thought. We need Dave Zinn. Did he retire? Oh. Well, he was good while he lasted. I went
Does
blank on
anyone
what I
have
was gonna
any
say.
questions that we haven't covered that you can think of?
At some point, you're gonna have to deal with mobile wallet solutions, touch pay.
Oh, it is on, okay.
Touch pay.
And at some point, it is gonna be a direct transaction, a three-way transaction from the customer to the customer's bank, back to the merchant in real time, and the merchant is never going to have any indication, any documentation of what card number the customer used. It will be between the customer and the bank. At that point, in mobile wallet solutions, when they work the way they're supposed to, there will simply be no indication of the form of payment as a credit card anywhere in the merchant's operating system.
Is that something the El Dorado has?
No. At this point, nobody is up and running to that extent, but within 5 years.
And I feel like when it gets to that point, we will have to totally revisit, and if we have to, we're gonna have to go to like an affidavit or something. I mean, because it sounds like there will be nothing.
We're talking about the GSA going to that? I don't think that's gonna be anytime soon.
They're a little slow.
I mean, we accept touch pay and food and beverage, but not on government cards, no.
They're still issuing, but at some
If you were to do that, I don't know how you, just walking down that line, how you differentiate between individual versus centrally billed versus a personal card and what, how you would identify.
is telling industry exactly how they do that, and if they, again, went to a mobile wallet, they would probably do the same thing, and they would say, now the federal government's using mobile wallet, here's how industry can tell a centrally billed from an individually billed. I don't imagine that it would be too much different than what they do already. There would have to be some kind of indication. Maybe.
If they think that far ahead.
Is there any other emerging issues that we should be looking for non-government related? Since we have all of you here.
I've got a question, just out of curiosity, when it comes to taxing, how are things looking for taxation on like these Airbnbs and stuff like that? I mean, that's,
We actually do have an agreement with Airbnb, so they are paying us taxes direct for everything in Washoe County.
so the tax comes to RSCVA from Airbnb directly,
Yeah, we've had that in place for a little over a year.
and it's working pretty
Very
well? Cool.
Yeah, yeah, we had, gosh, I think it's been about 3 years ago. It used to be, before we changed the regulations, that if you had 3 or more units, you had to be licensed. We reduced it to an individual homeowner and created an entire category, which then had a few other trickling effects, one of which was Airbnb and how big that was. But we've got about 200 individual homeowners signed up as one-offs, as well as Airbnb. Everything that flows through that comes to us taxation-wise. Took a little while to get there, but they came to the table and have been a good partner since we got them signed up.
I know Amy down there has a question that Brian can answer.
Okay, so I want to know if there's any best practices in the room for guests who stay at your hotel that are comp. Either they've earned a reward for a comp stay or whatever it may be. And how do you pay, or do you ask the guest to pay the $2 fee?
What's that?
That's what I was wondering if, so you do charge just $2?
We do too.
Because it's actually noted like if you on Expedia or a third party or not necessarily on the stay, but you should just charge $2.
We have had some issues with that as it relates to some of the larger properties going away from a full comp model, especially with resort fees now. So if the guest is paying anything, even if it's $1, then it's a taxable room. It's not given completely free of charge. So the surcharge, whether it be $2 or $3, would apply. But I believe on the back end, don't you get reimbursed for those through franchise or corporate? Yeah, we'd have to look at that specific case. I thought my understanding from Robert and Karen is that there was a back-end reimbursement for those reward transactions.
Right, so and we do have a frequently asked question for the surcharge on our website, and it does say there that if the property is getting compensation, then the surcharge is in effect. So if you're being reimbursed for the room revenue, the surcharge kicks in.
We've tried to try to make it simple because there are so many one-off cases. Essentially, if tax would apply, the surcharge would apply, is really that trigger that we've looked at. So if you're getting a penny or $100, it's still, if there's a tax due, the surcharge would be due for those properties, to try to make it simple.
Amy, you had another question. You want me to ask Brian for you? Okay. Amy is with a non-gaming hotel, and when she walked in, she asked how the surcharge benefits a property like hers. Is that the question? Yeah.
So high level, the surcharge collectively that we receive as the RSCVA is about $5 million a year. This year, we actually had 2 years the way our strategic plan phased in. So some of that money went to capital, some went to sales, and some went to marketing. Next year, with the rebranding efforts, it'll entirely go to marketing efforts. So we're going into new markets, San Diego, Seattle, Bay Area, a large digital rollout, as well as there's an air service fund to try to grow air service to the area. So it's really touching a lot of different pieces. I can't say that directly impacts your hotel any different than anybody else's, but that's the flow of what's coming in and what's going out.
Will there continue to be an increased price differential for the resort or city fee for the downtown wards as opposed to the non-downtown wards?
That was discussed this year to make it all $3. Right now, the 5 gaming properties downtown are at the 3. $1 of which goes, $2 of which goes to the city of Reno for capital improvements to the facilities downtown. There was not support at the legislature this year to increase it to $3 countywide. Could it change next year, or 2 years, I guess, potentially, but at this point, we're at the 2 and the 3 moving forward until further notice.
Anyone have any other questions on any of our regs? Any concerns? Anything?
Just out of curiosity, on here I mean, we don't get too many of them, but on the diplomatic exemption, is that something, what's the backup for that? Because I've gotten one of those in 7 years.
You need to make a copy of their diplomatic card.
Okay.
I have a handout that I think I ordered from the U.S. State Department about 20 years ago. And it shows the different types of cards, and it depends on what animal is on there. There's like a deer and an owl and 2 other animals on there, and it depends on what the card actually says. But our regs are very vague when it comes to diplomatic cards. So basically it's so few and far between that we have basically decided it'll be accepted.
Okay.
Because, like I said, it's very vague, even on the handout from the State Department. So,
So we want to actually make a photocopy of their credentials? And I'm
and keep
guessing
a copy of, like, with their folio or something.
Okay, and I guess allow them to redact any information that they're concerned about?
Yes.
Thank you.
Going once? Going twice? Just one thing, this roundtable has been recorded, so tomorrow, maybe, if Chad, our IT department, gets it put together, we'll be emailing everyone a link to this presentation or to this roundtable. So anything that you missed or you forgot or you want to know what someone else said, you can watch the whole thing. There have been some who dialed in and are watching it live stream. So I guess that's it if no one else has anything, and other than thank you all for coming.
Yes, I just want to thank everyone for, again, taking the time to come today. I think it was very important that we all get together. And like Robert said earlier, if anyone has any questions, big or small or whatever, please call us. We'll be glad to help you. It's better to call instead of waiting. You guys have a great day. Thank you.
She just stole my thunder.
I just one other thing, if something changes, that, with this credit card tokenization, and all of a sudden you lose it, let us know. So if anyone is able to create a report, let us know so we can pass it on to others. Thank you.